So this is Algebra 1, Semester 1. It's the third unit called Graphing Linears. And it's the 14th lesson called Writing Equations in Point-Slope Form Practice. It's on CreatorMath.com under the Algebra 1 tab. You might have to Google CreatorMath.weebly.com to find the site. The instructions are copy the following problems into your composition book on the correct pages according to the table of contents with the notes for those pages from CreatorMath.com. So I do try to illustrate where that is. It can be difficult to find. You're looking for notes that you put in your comp book, and you're looking for what pages do those notes go on. Right? So here's the actual website name, CreatorMath.weebly.com. Google that. If you do, hopefully you can get to this home page. Many students still have questions about the composition book. It's totally understandable, but there are answers to it, and it's right here. Just scroll down, find the large words composition book, read all the instructions, watch all the videos, follow all the due dates, and put things where they belong, including the notes, which we're going to look at right now, and you should have a 90 to 100% on that composition book. For the actual notes, and for problem sets, and for videos like we're making now, and for the vocabulary, you're going to click into the tab of the class you're in, or in this case, the video we're making. If you're not getting 100% on your vocabulary practices, you may not be aware there is a PDF with every vocabulary word we use throughout the entire school year. It is downloadable to your device, and it is searchable. Just Google how do I search a PDF with whatever type device you have and follow their directions. It's a little bit different for each type of device. Next important thing is to find the semester that we are in, or that the lesson is in that we're looking at. So in this case, we're going to this semester. Here's the table of contents. The table of contents is so important that I ask you to write it in its entirety onto pages 2 through 6 of your composition book. Why? Because it has all the page numbers of everything that goes in the composition book. What goes on page 19? Just check the table of contents. What goes on page 21 and 22? Check the table of contents. All right. So if you haven't done that already, please stop what you're doing and do that now. Otherwise, we're going to look for, this is the unit we're in, Graphing Linears, and these are all lessons all the way down. We're looking for lesson 14 way down here, writing equations in point-slope form. Here are the page numbers on which these notes go. Please don't take this video's word for it, but go back and find the original table of contents, as by the time you watch this video, these page numbers probably might have, maybe will have changed. All right, here are the notes. Here's the problem set we're going to go over right now, and here's where the video will be linked once it's done. When you open the notes, it may take a couple times. Knock on wood, I've never had to load it twice, but notice how it's not clearing up. I'm going to go back and load it a second time. Let's do 14 again. Click on the notes and just repeat the process. Okay, so far, knock on wood, it's always open by at least the second time. So this is talking about the point-slope formula. What is it? It's y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. And it's called a point-slope formula. Why? Because if we have a point, as in 1, 4, and a slope, 2/3, we can write the equation of a line that is that represents this line. The equation of that represents the line that this is. Okay, so what is the equation of a line with slope 2/3 passing through point 1,4? So we write out the point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x, the quantity x minus x1. And we just fill in these values. What are the values? Well, this is y here, the 4. Why? Because it's x comma y coordinate notation. So the 4 drops in for y1. It's positive. The formula has a negative. That's why it's -4. Okay, the formula has the negative in it. See it? Then on the x, there's a negative in here too. So drop in the x, it's 1, x minus 1, and drop in the slope, 2/3. This is it. You're technically done. You could start to multiply this out and go through distributive process and move this to the other side, etc. But this is done. This is an equation of a line. If you type this, no, you can't type this directly into. You'd have to move the 4 over to type it directly into Desmos. Okay, but this is done in terms of an equation of a line with this slope passing through this point. All right, so you're going to write these examples in your comp book on the correct pages. You're also going to write down some things about slope, which is rise over run, which is delta y over delta x, which means change in y over change in x. All right, and a coordinate point, you're going to be reminding yourself of x comma y. All right, with that said, let's go and look at the problems for this lesson. So here's the first one. What is the point slope form of a line equation? More than one answer may apply. Well, this is it here, and this is it here. What's the difference? So you can write this y minus y1 equals, and we often put a parentheses around it just to group it. You really don't have to, but it's often written that way. Equals slope times x minus x2. Now notice we didn't label, whoops, x1. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself and I'm starting to make mistakes. Okay, so y1 is here, x1 is here. There's no x2 and y2 in this format. However, it's equally correct to write y2 minus y1 equals mx2 minus x1. Okay, this is an equally correct way to write the point slope form of a line equation. Okay, both here, two answers are right. This is the slope-intercept form. This is the standard form. And this is an equation of a parabola because it's raised to the second power, otherwise known as a quadratic. All right, next question is, why is the point slope form of a line equation called the point slope form? Why is it named that, right? Because if we have a point like 2 comma negative 3 and a slope like 2/3, we can produce the equation of a line. So it's named after what it does. Given a point and a slope, we can write an equation. So it's called a point slope form of the equation of a line. All right, using the point slope form of the equation of a line, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and a point, 2 comma negative 3, and a slope of 2/3, what is the equation? So start with writing it out. Okay, and just fill it in. This is x, so it goes in for x1. So the minus is in the formula, and it's a positive 2, so it goes 2 here. The x stays here. The m in this case, we're going backwards. What's the m? 2/3, so that just gets in here 2/3. The y stays in here because the y and the x represent the x and the y-axis, and we replaced x1 here, so now we're going to replace y1. That's a minus 3. Well, there's a minus in the formula and a minus 3. So y minus a minus 3 equals 2/3 times the quantity x minus 2 is our answer. And of course you can go back and start to clean up, like you can say x plus 3 here. 2/3 x minus 2. And you could distribute this and start to multiply this out. It's not necessary for our purposes here. That's all a different type of activity you can do for other reasons, okay? So we're just going to go with what's the raw answer and move on. One of the biggest challenges is just getting to the point where you can start, right? So this looks a little complicated. If the point slope formula is flipped, so you have m times x2 minus x1 equals y2 minus y1. So what's happened? This side has been flipped over here, and this side has been just flipped the whole thing, and so it's m times x minus x1 on the left and the y minus y1 on the right. Right? So if the point slope formula is flipped, m times x2 minus x1 equals y2 minus y1, and then both sides are divided by x2 minus x1, so we're dividing both sides by this here. Okay, here it is divided by, and then simplified, we get this. Then we finally have m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is the definition of slope. So this is sufficiently complicated to go ahead and write it out for you, right? M equals x2 minus x1 equals y2 minus y1. This is the point slope formula just reversed with the sides flipped. What we're doing is dividing both sides by x2 minus x1. Okay, and we can do that. We can divide any, because it's being multiplied by the m, we can divide it here. What we do on the left, we do on the right. This is 1 over 1, so to speak. It's any number over itself can be canceled. So you're left with just m on the left, and this repeats down here, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And what is this? This is the actual definition of slope. It's rise over run. And remember, rise is controlled by the y's, or y2 minus y1, and run is controlled by the x's. So x2 minus x1. So this is slope m, rise over run, okay, otherwise known as delta y over delta x, or change in y over change in x, etc. So Interestingly enough, the point-slope formula comes from the definition of slope or vice versa, whichever way you want to go about this. All right, what's the definition of slope? So more than one answer may apply. Slope is rise over run, you guys. Slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. True. Slope is delta y over delta x. Delta literally means change in, which is the change in y is y2 minus y1, and the change in x is x2 minus x1. The symbol for slope is m. You know, I always tell my kids it stands for mountain, like you're walking up a steep mountain, and that's slope. Probably not true, but maybe it's a memory device, okay? Change in y over change in x is another way. These are all right for what is slope. Slope is all those things. One of the reasons it's so complicated for students is because it can have so many sort of different representations. They're all the same thing, but it just sort of adds to the complexity in the mind of the student. So using the point slope formula of y2 minus y1 equals m times x2 minus x1, and a point, negative 6, 7, and a slope of this, what's the equation? So y minus y1 equals, and they give this to us right here, we're just rewriting it. All right, let's plug in the y is 7, so y minus 7. Let's plug in the m of negative 3 halves times x minus the x1. So because we replace the second one here, we replace the second one here, which is minus 6. All right, so do we have an x minus a minus 6? Yes. Do we have a negative 3 halves? Yes. And do we have an x minus 7? Yes. This one right here. Okay. Using the point slope form of the equation of a line. Okay. Oh, same thing. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Let's do it again. The x is 1. The m is 1/2. The y1 is 3. Okay, so y minus 3, check, times, equals 1/2 times x minus, this point has 1 here, so this has got to be 1, so this has got to be 1 here. Okay, minus 1. We're selecting this one. And I will fix it by the time you get there, so you won't even see that. Okay, it'll be right for you when you solve it. So make sure you're matching up the title of this video with the title of the practice set you're doing. Otherwise, it won't make any sense at all, you guys. This is Algebra 1, Semester 1. It's the 3rd unit called Graphing Linears, and it's the 14th lesson called Writing Equations in Point-Slope Form Practice. Hope that helps.